This might be a hot take, but I think this piece of advice is harder to follow than the last one. With the parts of our lives that have become familiar, even if we know that they suck, we tolerate them due to a general understanding of how difficult they make our lives. As we have experience in a certain area, we are able to anticipate and thus mentally prepare ourselves for the hardships there within. The uncertain, however, is like going on our 50-50, where we have just as much of a chance of seeing a severed finger as we do a field full of puppies. Sure, we could see what's behind door B, but we're afraid enough of door A that we don't want to risk it. And so, even if it sucks, we'd rather go with the devil that we know. That is, however, until we reach a crossroads that makes it impossible to live the way that we always have until this point. Even in the case where there's nothing technically wrong with our lives, we see a future where only we are there to contest with our isolation, and so we decide that we need a change in the worst way possible, even if that change takes us away from the familiar and controllable. Such reminds me of my naivety as a child, my hunger to control everything that happened to me, not only thinking that I wanted to control everything in my life, but that I was capable of doing so, not necessarily in a power trip sort of way, but in a sort of, I can predict what's coming next type of manner. Part of this is because we like to know what we're getting, but also because we like to feel some level of control in our own lives. While this is nice, when I was younger, I didn't realize the opportunities that I was robbing myself of by confining myself to the familiar. About 10 years ago, I had a bad case of overthinking. Everything had to feel right. Everything had to be the perfect moment. Whether it was falling in love, or simply talking to people. If the stars didn't align perfectly, I wouldn't even approach someone. Instead, I would wait for them to come to me. The problem is, I was never good at figuring out when that perfect moment was, or if it even existed to begin with. And so, I became a victim of analysis paralysis. Waiting for everything to be perfect, every moment passed me by, leaving me to wonder if I could have done something differently. To slightly modify an old Beyonce lyric so it fits the context of this video, life may come and pass you by while you're busy making plans. You can spend so much time thinking about who you're going to be and what you're going to do, but all of it can crumble apart if the plans that the universe has for you is inconsistent with the plans that you have for yourself. If I had my way, I would have never left my room as a child. Like that one episode of SpongeBob where he refuses to go outside, instead making friends with a penny, a napkin, and a chip. I was a connoisseur of the great indoors, a controllable environment where uncertainty had no idea where to find me. Instead, I was in a polyamorous relationship with sleep, video games, and homework, and I had no plans of making any changes. I knew what every day had in store, and that was exactly the way I liked it. Unfortunately, the divine hand of fate didn't like to see me churning my golden years away in my basement. And in that regard, I think I might owe it a little bit of thanks. Even 2.5 years removed from college, one of my greatest regrets is not getting out of my dorm more. Instead, committing myself to my studies because I thrived in the structure. And when that structure crumbled on graduation day, I was unprepared to adapt to my shift in environment. Now, this might just be a me thing, choosing a major based off of what I enjoy and not what would help me survive, but this taught me 2 things. 1, the importance of being multifaceted. If we tattoo ourselves to one way of existence, we will be unprepared to adapt when that way of living is no longer viable. And the other thing it taught me is that grades are not the only determinant for whether we succeed or fail in life. The major determinant is the people that we meet along the way. Even though normal is comfortable, and sometimes even necessary, we will cultivate neither the skills nor the relationships that we need by refusing to expand beyond what we already know. And on that note, I want to transition into the experiences that I had at Seton Hall, as well as how much those experiences changed my life. Even if we think we know the directions that our lives will take, everything we thought we knew can be uprooted by one chance encounter. as perhaps we've already experienced at some point in our lives. I'll be honest and say that I like controlling my life. But I've also come to understand that both the uncertain and the uncontrollable are what revolutionize our existence. And thanks to my time at college, I've been fortunate enough to forge friendships like this. Not all of the relationships that I ended up making there ended up working out, but the ones that did ended up becoming lifelong bonds. I have 2 friend groups that I could use to exemplify this, but the one that I want to focus on for this video is the one that I made at a Seton Hall basketball game. Even though Seton Hall was known for its basketball team, rostering the likes of Miles Powell and Sandro Mamukelashvili, I had no interest in divorcing myself from my comfortable chrysalis, my hub that only existed for sleep and homework. There was just one complication, however. The tickets were already paid for, and they were on my parents' dollar. And while they never pressured me to go to games, they had already paid for them, so I decided I might as well go. And since this is a crucial part of the story, it sounds absurd, but I swear that this feels like fate at play. Even though attending the games wasn't entirely my choice, it didn't take long for me to be rewarded for taking 3 hours out of my day to go and enjoy myself. That reward, of course, came in the form of 2 lifelong friends, Brad Schumer and Matt Collins. It wasn't a voluntary meeting of the minds at all. I only met them because I was randomly reading rap lyrics to strangers that I had come up with over the past couple of months. And yet, as soon as we met, the forging of a friendship was almost instant. Brad Schumer is probably one of the chillest people that I've ever met. I don't think I've ever heard him raise his voice, apart from when I traded Shohei Ohtani for Reed Detmers and Michael Conforto in a fantasy league that we're both in, which was a trade that was ultimately reversed due to the controversy it raised, that resulted in me being assigned a co-owner that was there to prevent me from making stupid trades ever again. And even with all this in mind, he was still the one that ended up apologizing, because he still thought that he was being too harsh, even though I didn't think that he was being that harsh over his texts. But of course, it's the classic thing of us being harder on ourselves than other people are on us, so I completely get it. But still, the fact that he apologized even though he didn't need to, in my opinion, shows the exact kind of person that he is. Meanwhile, Matt Collins and I not only bonded over a love for sports, but a love for rap as well, which was the domino that would set the next few years in motion. These 2 were a few of the only ones that could get me out of my room while I was at college. They were the catalysts of some of my best memories, both during undergrad and post-graduation. So it's no surprise that we frequently take turns referring to each other as GOATs, which is a term of endearment that stands for greatest of all time. Now, regardless of the positives, I'm fully well aware of how frightening the unknown can be, especially as someone with trust issues who is constantly evaluating the intentions of people that I've never met. Hell, I do that with people I've known for my entire life, who I think are being nice so as not to hurt my feelings. So, one of the biggest things that I've struggled with is leaving a place of comfort, even if somewhere else has more opportunity for me. Hopefully, however, me having to contest with this in the past means something to someone, and while I know not everyone has the same experience as me, as I've had to ask myself how to rationalize leaving my comfort zone, the best answer that I have is that I can dig into my history and count the times I've removed myself from a state of comfort, as well as the amount of times that it's been beneficial. With any luck, I'll inspire both of us to leave our bubble, at one point or another. Despite my intentions to focus solely on school, leaving my room opened the door, no pun intended, for uncertain experiences. As scary as this may be, if the result is meeting people like Matt and Brad, then the reward is well worth the risk. I'm going to talk in later videos about how we came to be such good friends, even more than I've talked about here, but all that really needs to be known for now is how much being ripped away from my room ended up changing my life in the best way possible. Even momentary highs such as rapping for people on the bus ride back from a Seton Hall basketball game, which, may I add, got me a large pop from people who enjoyed my performance, showed me that, and this is gonna sound corny, the best way to find what we're looking for is to be ourselves and do what we were going to do anyways. And if we do that, then people will flock to us naturally. That includes someone on the bus who asked me for a picture, who wasn't exactly hard on the eyes, if you catch my meaning. But it's really true that we find what we're looking for once we stop searching. That being who we are will be rewarded by the universe, whether it takes days or years. I didn't go to that Seton Hall game looking for lifelong friendships. And I didn't rap on the bus looking for dap or to impress the chicks in the back. I did it because it was fun and because I liked doing it. And even though the reaction was uncertain, it certainly went better than I ever would have expected. To an extent, through our actions, hobbies, and beliefs, we can curate both the people and the opportunities who come in and out of our lives. And while we unfortunately can't determine when those people and opportunities will come, similar to our pain, we can take the opportunities we're given and treat them with the weight that they deserve, taking the uncertain and spinning it so that it benefits us in the long run. As with anything, however, we have to decide for ourselves what our reasoning and what our limit is. And even though we're fully within our right to say, nah, I'm good not risking it, I've learned that the next big thing in my life could be just around the corner, and I would never know so long as my existence maintained a perfectly sealed bubble. And even though I know I could get hurt while I walk an uncertain path, I also know that life is raucous, volatile, and serendipitous, so long as we let it be. Most importantly, however, life is for the living. To quote The Rose by Bette Midler, it's the heart afraid of dying that never learns to live.